Okay, so Ryan asked me to talk about some environmental challenges in our community. She wanted me to come up with three or four, and I could right away think about a few that I've been thinking about over the years. As I've said, I've lived here since 1985, and so I can see some changes going on. And the connection to some of these, I'll get into that. But we do have a lot of connection with our environment. And one of the things that really struck me from a wildlife perspective is the pesticides in our environment, and in particular the rodenticides, because I have firsthand interactions of this. Pesticides, as you know, include rodenticides, herbicides, fungicides, um, all the sides. But one of pesticides is rodenticide. In the 70s and 80s, they started to recognize that some of the rodents that these pests they wanted to get rid of were beginning to get resistant to the current forms of rodenticides. So they came up with what they call the second generation rodenticides, which were really pretty robust. It turned out that they had a pretty large impact on other species in the environment, these non-target species out there. And so currently, rodenticides are only allowed to be used for by commercial pest control companies and pest control markets, but there is some illegal applications out there as well, in particular with marijuana grow operations and that occurred. Now that it's legal, I don't know that they're actually having that much of an impact in the marijuana grow operations, but they have had in the past. And what these rodenticides do when you start poisoning these small mammals that have become pests around our dwellings, they start moving up into our ecosystem. And the rodenticides sort of they don't actually always kill the animal outright. It makes them sluggish, and so they become more vulnerable. And so other things will actually eat the poisoned rodent. And so this becomes sort of a bioaccumulation of the pesticide in the environment. And my firsthand knowledge with this is through a few studies. The barred owl removal project, experimental removal project, actually was able to test a lot of the carcasses that they had, and they found 64% of the barred owls in our forest actually tested positive for this second generation rodenticide. Now, I didn't actually kill the barred owl. Obviously, the person who was conducting the experimental removal killed it, but it just shows that this pesticide gets into the system. My experience with it is, having worked with the spotted owls for 30 years, I had a call from a resident out in our study area saying they had a spotted owl in their yard, and I went out and investigated. The picture on the left is the spotted owl. The next day it died. She saved the carcass for it. We tested it. It had rodenticide in its tissues. This bird was severely underweight and was not acting completely normal up until the time that it died. The picture on the right is a red-tailed hawk, showing that some of the internal bleeding that could be caused by these rodenticides in the environment. So it's almost like you don't know they're there really, because these animals are dying and we're not able to find them. It was a very unusual occurrence for us to be able to get this spotted owl in to get tested, because you don't find dead spotted owls every day. So so they're out there, they're having a problem. It's just, we just don't know what impact they're having. And similarly, in Northern California, they have a study of the spotted owl. There's some marijuana grow operations. Those operations have been dormant for about 10 years. And they have found that the chemical is very persistent in the environment. It still exists. They tested this dead spotted owl that they found, also had this second generation rodenticide in it. So the impacts are very clear that they're happening in our environment. And then out of Germany, they were trying to solve their rat problem in their sewers, and so they put these rodenticides down into their sewer system, and then they tested the water and the fish, and it was very striking to me that they found that in the fish livers, this brodifacoum is the second generation rodenticide that that the spotted owl had tested positive for, is in 100% of the fish that they found in their livers. So these chemicals are getting from the application for one species into a place where we really didn't intend them. So the challenge is, how do we keep these harmful chemicals from getting into our waterways, affecting our wildlife, fish, and health? So the other environmental challenge that I was thinking about is the homeless in the environment. I've watched the number of homeless encampments increase. I know there are some changes in policy and whatever, but in 2019, it was estimated that over 567,000 people were homeless in the US and Puerto Rico. All of these people have limited or no access to bathroom services, to garbage disposal, or other sanitary services. And it's a really complicated issue. People are homeless because of a variety of reasons. The most prominent ones are either economics, mental health, substance abuse, and former criminal history. They just got out of prison. They don't have a place to go. And sometimes these solutions that communities come up with can actually meet resistance within our own community. These encampments generate an enormous amount of trash at times. This is in California along some of the waterways, but homeless people don't know what to do with the trash that they generate, or they don't have the mental capacity to understand what they need to do. If you're out there and you're you're there because you have mental health issues. So this problem is pretty widespread, not just in our community, but it does have the capacity to enter our waterways. This results in that excess trash, the human waste issue, a reduction of the scenic properties and cleanliness of our public spaces. This is actually a picture I took one day this last winter by Stewart Park, a place that I used to walk my dog, and Casey and I used to walk our dogs, and it's just become really trashy now, and so these contaminants can reach our waterways. So the challenge number 2 is, how do we lessen the impact to our environment from the people in our community that don't have access to basic housing or other sanitary services? And then the challenge number 3 that I came up with is the lack of recycling. We used to recycle quite a bit. We had a good recycling program. It wasn't perfect. China was taking all the plastics. It's interesting. They produced all the plastics, shipped them to us. We bought the products, and then the packaging we would ship back them. A lot of energy going into that, and that's kind of another issue. But at least we had, something we could do with some of this packaging. And in 2019, as most of you probably know, recycling in our community took a pretty dramatic downward slide, and also all around the nation. And some communities have started to build up their recycling capacities. I understand the counties around Douglas County are still recycling more than what we're doing here. Somehow they're able to continue to take some of our excess packaging and other materials. And so maybe they have the will and the funding to support that recycling, or have come up with innovative ways to recycle some of that material. We also are facing new sources of pollution. With the pandemic, we have these disposable masks that are ending up in our environment. Something that, we have a pandemic that now has created another issue, another source of pollution. These have these elastic bands on the side that don't deteriorate, and they can get caught up in wildlife and really cause some damage. So where and what to recycle in our community has been kind of confusing. It's not really been very easy the whole time I've been here. There's not a one place fits all. I can remember driving to different places maybe. We all know that we have the bottle bill, which are beverage containers we can take back to the bottle drop place. That's pretty set. We all have that going. But not all places, other places in the county take all the recyclables. And so it's really challenging to know where to go. The county just started accepting glass again. And it's some stipulations on that. You have to remove the labels, blah, blah, blah. They have a website, tells you what they accept and they don't accept. The Roseburg Disposal Company accepts some items as well, and they have it all laid out if you get that type of service within the city of Roseburg. In the county, we don't have Roseburg disposal outside of the city limits, but it's really been challenging knowing where to go to take the items, and driving to several different places to take different items. And so why do we have so much excess packaging anyway? Well, some of it is for health and safety reasons. You have those little pieces of plastic that sort of keep people from tampering with your item. But some of it is more aesthetic, and you think that when you're buying something that maybe is organic, that they might also be thinking about the environment. But even some of these organic companies use excess packaging. This organic tea company has individually plastic wrapped tea bags, and so the excess packaging is there, and we have so very little control over what is packaged in the way it's packaged when we want a particular product. We do have choices we can make, but sometimes it's just not there. And then we get dumped into our mailboxes every year. There's 100 million trees a year that are cut down just for junk mail. And I've worked so hard to try and get these, even these environmental groups sending me mailings, and I'll donate to them, and I'll tell them, please, no paper mailers. Send me plenty of emails. I don't care. But I would send them back messages. Please stop sending me these mailers. I don't read them. They go into fire starters. But just this excess of stuff we don't want is out there in the environment. See, I'm getting all worked up. This is just it's a huge problem. We have no control over some of this stuff in our environment. So the challenge is, how can we reduce the excess packaging and increase our recycling options? Because these contaminants, this waste in our environment, it will end up in our water, affect our wildlife, and also end up in our food system. And it's interesting, I was putting this talk together March 17, 2021. Forest pesticides are found downstream in the coastal Oregon waters. And this article actually talks about the interaction of all of this stuff that we're putting into our environment, how you're having these interactive effects of chemicals that we haven't studied. So if you go to the doctor and the doctor's going to prescribe you a medicine, they'll look at what other medicines you're taking to make sure there's no, drug interaction. But we can't do that in our environment. We have all this stuff coming in from different sources with no control to keep those things from interacting. And so we found ourselves poisoning our own system. So sorry to be such a downer, but those are challenges. What can we do to clean up our environment and to make it safe for our wildlife and our food sources? So there, I almost got us back on time.
Yeah, great job. Very good. So in just a moment, we're going to be switching to Susan Applegate, who'll be doing nature journaling. But before we do that, just kind of reflect over the last two presentations that you heard, and start to think about how you, and with any of the future presentations, how you might apply some of this information in your classroom. Like, I want it to be that each presentation could offer something that you could take away that's useful. And we have all different types of presentations, some more interactive than others, some more presentation style than others, but really think about, the question that Janice asked, like, how can we reduce the excess waste and increase recycling? That could be a question that you pose to your students. You could have them design more eco-friendly packaging. You could have them, research the recycling system in the area, and maybe, depending on what kind of class you're in, whether it's ELA, social studies, science, maybe they write letters to government or try to develop a recycling system, right? So, like, really empowering kids, which you'll hear more about this during the climate change presentation, empowering kids, giving them a chance to start to think about those solutions, I think might be part of the answer.